Hi everyone, and welcome to a weekly energy update, a general tarot guidance taking a look at how this week's energies are likely to influence our lives personally and collectively alike. Now, from an astrological perspective, we already know that this is one of those weeks where there's gonna be a massive buildup of energy, a really powerful crescendo. It is going to be the week after where we have a discharge of these energies with the upcoming Aries full moon, a very potent celestial conversation, and of course many other more that are taking place one after another until the very end of the year. So today's reading does show the buildup of energy, but unfortunately I'm so very sorry to say this, from a collective perspective, it's not a very pretty sight. If whatever these cards show us is foreshadowing the upcoming events of, let's say, next week and even next month and until the very end of the year, well then we are in for quite a lot of turbulence from a material perspective, from a karmic perspective, and also from a legal perspective. But I repeat, collectively, so individually it can be totally different. It doesn't really have to be doom and gloom. And quite frankly, from an individual perspective, a massive buildup of energy always leads to a breakthrough, a powerful change, or embracing a totally different lifestyle perhaps. So before I get into the reading, I would just like to highlight that yes, collectively it is what it is, but individually there is no reason why these energies have to play out like that. So don't be afraid, don't let this discourage you. The best way to look at all of this is that we're in the middle of a very powerful and profound world change, a pivotal moment. And our grandparents, our ancestors experienced so many of these events, wars, natural calamities, crises of all kinds. So basically, this is our generation's portion of world change and crisis, of course. So let's take a look at what these cards mean collectively speaking. First we have the Eight of Coins reversed, clarified by the Ace of Wands reversed, and the Queen of Wands reversed. Now from a collective perspective, this can mean more than one thing, but whatever it is a blockage, it is progress and work put to a halt that will cause frustration, that will cause inconveniences, perhaps a rather forced improvisation, if that makes sense. And with this Eight of Coins, well, it can be in some parts of the world, in certain countries, a big stress, a big obstacle, a big burden on the healthcare system, because the Eight of Coins is Virgo energy after all. And Virgo has a lot to do with healthcare, nurses, doctors, and all of that. In other places of the world, this might actually represent education system, where something blocks students and people going to university, young professionals, and that will cause some problems. And last but not least, this might also represent that a big company, maybe an international company, like a huge giant, is going to be experiencing some economic downfall or a blockage, or there is going to be a problem, and that will basically chain all through the planet. And of course, this Eight of Coins can also represent the work and the effort that everyone basically, so authorities and everyone in this picture, is trying their best to solve the situation, to help the situation, to make improvements, to make progress, innovations, but it's not gonna be leading anywhere, at least this week. So this is a lot of frustration energy, basically from all sides, And also this Ace of Wands reversed can represent anger, restlessness, urgency. And the Queen of Wands reversed needing to improvise regardless if it makes sense, if it's logical, safe or not. Solutions with certain problems that cannot wait have to be enabled. Now next we have the Lovers clarified by the Empress reversed and the Judgment. Now this also means more than one thing. Its first symbolism has to do with compromise. The Lovers can be seen as two partners where it's centralized power, the leaders, the politicians, those who basically are at the buttons, and the other side is the people. The Empress reversed, well, people are very, very unhappy. People are totally dissatisfied. So that means that compromises have to be made. Because after all, the Lovers is also symbolic that politicians and people at the buttons are merely representatives of the people. So regardless of what they think, how they judge the judgment, the situation, well, it's still the will of the people that has to be executed. Even if, let's say per absurdum, people are wrong or they don't judge it correctly, if that is what they want, that is what they have to get. And we will see this scene play out in different parts of the world where, authorities have to compromise, like it or not. But a totally different kind of expression of this energy is something, a big truth, perhaps the result of an investigation, a secret reaching the world stage, because the Judgment card is Pluto. Pluto just went direct. That means secrets are coming out. The skeletons in the closet are being revealed. And what is going to be revealed is that, with this world crisis situation, all of its aspects, financial, economic, political, social, legal, and of course the healthcare and the scientific stuff, well, it will be revealed one way or another that two nations or two organizations, where probably the World Health Organization is one of the members, so either these two partners, so to speak, neglected something on purpose, the Empress reversed of course, or they are hand in hand with the creators of the problem. So interpret this as you will. This is what I can say about it. And next we have the Hangman reversed, the Tower and Three of Swords. And this is quite serious because the Hangman reversed is revolution. It is rebellion. It is waking up to a totally different kind of reality that we thought was ongoing due to a revelation. And again, the Hangman points to a secret or new information, a new perspective, a new light of things coming out. And that will cause Tower moments and Three of Swords, fear, anger, heartbreak. So what this says is very straightforward. Protests, revolution, rebellion, a sudden change and twist of events where perhaps politicians or leaders or relevant people change sides, change attitudes due to an information or revelation or discovery. This can also represent conflict between law enforcement and people, protesters, etc. And what's different is that they are gonna be quite violent. Because with this Three of Swords, well, it kind of means that the wound, that the shock is already reaching the bone, if that makes sense. So it's pretty serious. And also, it may, ignite spontaneously. And this protest or rebellion, revolution will also be mirrored in different parts of the world. So it is going to be extremely confusing, extremely chaotic. Whatever might be shared on media, mainstream media, social media, etc. will be like Three of Swords material, as in no matter what that news, what that information is, well, it's still painful, it is still heartbreaking, it is still basically pure psychological toxin, if that makes sense. So the suggestion here is to unplug the TV, because being right now in the hangman position, but not reversed upright, in the bubble, in the dream, is much better than just giving into the fear, the anxiety, and the shock of whatever that event might be. We have the Three of Swords reversed, clarified by the Ace of Cups and the Ace of Swords reversed. Well, this doesn't mean anything specific as in an event or something palpable, but rather it shows the emotional energy shift from a collective perspective. So with the Three of Swords reversed, yes, there is gonna be fear, doom and gloom, despair. The future all of a sudden won't look very bright, and we might not be able to look at it from a pink tinted glass. But there is also a lot of good in this, because from a purely psychological perspective, it will really, really mobilize people to ask themselves, regardless of who they are and where they are in the world, what kind of future do they want to experience? Because the program, so to speak, that which seemed to be the future until now, well, it vanished. It's poof, it's dust. It's no longer there. And what is there is just a big chaotic mist. Almost like, that cloud of gas before a star is born. So we don't know what it's gonna be. We don't know what it's gonna look like. And this will empower a lot of people to start focusing psychologically, emotionally, and even spiritually on their true desires, the Ace of Cups. While for others, this will be a very tough reality check moment when they will just wake up to the fact that they're not in Kansas anymore, symbolically speaking, of course. So we will experience a really powerful emotional energy shift regarding this global situation. Now let's take a look at what these cards mean personally. Now this Eight of Coins reversed with the Ace of Wands reversed and the Queen of Wands reversed. Well, this kind of suggests that we are experiencing our own personal Mercury retrograde conclusion moment, when our plans, our design, whatever we have been calculating and working on at the symbolic drawing board comes to a stop, and we have to upgrade it, we have to refine it, we have to add all the new elements that we have discovered through, let's say, communication, study, research, talks, discussions, whatever this Mercury retrograde represented for us personally. So we are adding our own personal conclusions and completing our future vision, our future plans, that Eight of Coins. For some people, this is much more professional, material, career-oriented. For other people, it's simply financial, but in a way where it doesn't necessarily have to do with their careers. And for others still, this is almost like a purge, like an elimination of everything that they found out during this Mercury retrograde, of course, that they don't want anymore to be part of their future plans. That which they no longer want to do, that which they no longer want to sustain in their lives. So this is slowly leading to a really powerful reconfiguration of our future plans. And individually speaking, the Ace of Wands reversed and the Queen of Wands reversed is not really a bad sign. Yes, of course there is a little bit of frustration there. Of course there might be a little bit of disappointment there. We do have the Sun holding a conversation of tension with Pluto. But whatever this frustration is, it is not going to be a determining factor we will know that this change is necessary, this change is needed, and whatever new information, truth, or clarity we got during this Mercury retrograde period, well, we're actually grateful for that, even if it acts as an inconvenience which we are the authors of, but for our greatest good, if that makes sense. Now we have the Lovers, clarified by the Empress reverse and the Judgment. Now this means different things for different people. For some of them, this means forgiveness, where a relationship, quite possibly a romantic relationship, but not necessarily, it can be like close friendship, soulmate kind of connection. It can also mean like any kind of alliance and partnership, but there has to be like a personal element there. So just business or just a work relation is not suggestive of the Lovers. There has to be something that unites these people. So if there was a separation in your life in maybe the recent past, maybe 6 months ago, that person might return in your life with either an apology or totally transformed. So this might actually speak of an unexpected reconciliation. For others still, this can be delayed gratification, where you might have invested some work, effort, you lent any kind of help, any kind of support to someone or a cause or any kind of work in the recent past, and you might not necessarily have received anything back. And of course, with this Empress reverse, you let it go, it was okay, you did it for the sake of helping, not necessarily to gain something, but that good karma, if that makes sense, might return now in your life one way or another. Maybe not necessarily in the way that you offered that help, and not necessarily from that person, but whatever you have done will reflect back in your life, and you will know that that is why it happened, because you did something really, really compassionate, loving, unconditional in the recent past, and didn't want or didn't accept anything in return. And for others still, while the Lovers does represent in many cases romantic relationship, a new lover, a new person entering your life, but of course there is a twist in this story, because this person, as the Empress reverse suggests, might not really be exactly your type. The person who you might have been in the past would judge a person like this, but because you yourself have went through a lot of change and a lot of psychological purges, especially in 2020, your judgment is no longer what it used to be, and that is why now you can connect with this person, a person who is unusual, who is outside your expectations or outside your comfort zone maybe, but because you changed so much, that is no longer an impediment, so you will get connected with this person, and a new relationship might begin from there. And what's also very important is that this person will offer you something that you have been afraid to ask from anyone in your life. But of course, maybe the word afraid is not that correct, because it can also be like guilt, shame, or simply an inner blockage where you really don't want to ask anyone that, whatever that may be. Like for example, affection, understanding, love, physical attention, mutual help, money, resources, etc., etc. And this person is just gonna offer it to you without you having to ask for it, and that will shock you in a really positive way. And now the Hangman reversed with the Tower and the Three of Swords. Now this also speaks about a shocking moment, a surprising revelation, but one which can also be like an epiphany, a moment of sudden realization. You realize something, you find out something, Of course, something personal, something which may have to do with the past. And whatever that is, it is really, really liberating. It will basically take chains off your heart, because this tower is the card of destruction after all, and what it destroys is the Three of Swords. Bad memory, heartache, heartbreak, someone profoundly disappointing you, someone hurting you, wounding you. So this is like a healing moment, if that makes sense, but one that comes like a shock, like an unexpected revelation or epiphany, or perhaps for some people, the next stage of their spiritual awakening, which comes unexpectedly. And finally, we have the Three of Swords reversed. Again, this points to the fact that the past Three of Swords, which was upright, is gonna be now demoted to reversed, meaning that whatever that was trauma, shock, hurt, heartache, heartbreak, etc., it's only a memory now. Of course, you cannot erase the memory that it happened. It is basically like a chemical signature in the mind, in the brain, but you no longer attribute emotions to it. It no longer hurts you. And whenever we are really, really sucked up in a trauma, it is almost like a part of our souls, a part of our consciousness is trapped in the past, like literally. And whenever we heal it, we kind of travel back in time and just say to that fragment of us, release it, let it go, come with me into the future where you won't hurt anymore. So that is gonna happen one way or another, because the Ace of Cups is ultimately the card of emotional blessing. Love, healing, understanding, compassion, empathy, and that can also mean empathy to the self. Not necessarily one given from another person, but of course that is also a possibility. And the Ace of Swords reversed, a big truth, like something, the sword of truth descending in your life, healing you ultimately. And last but not least, we also have divine guidance. We have the Four of Water and the Eight of Earth. And this is so very suggestive, because the divine tells us that yes, things are gonna be very tough, very tensionate, and this is gonna be ongoing. So this is not just a moment. This is where we have to get used to it, because for a couple of months, this is how life, external reality, the 3D is gonna look like. But with this Four of Water, how many times have we not heard stories from our grandparents, from the elders, or let's say watch documentaries when people related their personal experiences when they went through a massive world change, like world wars, massive calamity, a famine, or events that profoundly changed the world. And perhaps at that time we might have asked ourselves, well, what would I do in the place of that person who was ever telling the story? Now, surprisingly, quite suddenly, we find ourselves exactly in the position of that person. This is how we answer ourselves, by simply immersing in the now and using all of our coping skills that we have learned throughout our lives. And with this Eight of Earth, well, this is very suggestive. Maybe we should document whatever we feel, whatever we think, however we react to what is happening in the world, and most importantly, how we are coping with it each and every day, because maybe one day, in the more distant future of course, we are going to be those people telling stories to the children, to the future generation, of how we coped, of what we did, and how we were parts of a massive world change, of their present basically. And for some people, their present experiences are gonna be worth gold, so to speak. In the future, maybe a book, maybe their journal, maybe they will gain some kind of popularity. While for others, their life stories actually are going to take a very different turn, where the world around them might be in flames, and they personally might be living their biggest dream, might sense that every single moment in life is pure bliss. Because a dual time does need a very dual experiences. Whatever is happening in the world right now might be a specific type of person's worst nightmare, especially those who always lived a more capitalistic, corporate, material life. But for those who lived a rather spiritual life, all of this can turn into a beautiful dream, especially for those people for who life was pretty much a nightmare when the capitalistic world, if that makes sense, the symbolism of Capricorn, was blooming and in flowers, and it meant prosperity, business, riches, basically like genie in a bottle. With this change of times, things are shifting. And the combination of the Four of Cups and the Eight of Coins, because that is the equivalent of tarot, of these oracle cards, well, that just says dreams becoming reality. Hard work and effort is required, yes, of course, but that energy of effort can be purely emotional, psychological, spiritual, inner. And it does become reality because that is the essence of all of this. So this is how the divine is suggesting that we really have nothing to fear. All we need to do is embrace the dream, embrace the surreal vibe of this massive world change, because basically surreal is the home, the natural frequency of so very many people. Surreal is not necessarily a bad thing, especially like most holy texts, like the Bible for example, are actually built of a lot of surreal, miraculous, unusual experiences. So this concludes today's reading. Thank you so much for listening. As a final thought, please don't be afraid, don't give in to fear, regardless of how bad things look on the outside. This is also a time when divine protection is very literal. When and also if we might want to be at the wrong place at the wrong time, this is where the divine will simply stand in our way and block us in any way possible. So sometimes it is our blockages that we have to be grateful for, because when they are divinely orchestrated, and we can know when that is the case, when we try everything in our power and it still doesn't work, and not working doesn't make any sense whatsoever, then we know that is divine protection, and we just need to be patient and wait and basically enjoy the protection, even if it's a little bit, frustrating. So we must really be patient at this time. So thank you again. Wish everyone a magical week. And if you enjoyed this reading and would like to support my work, you can donate on the PayPal link in the description below. Thank you so much again. Until next time, bye for now.